would be great. Before we begin the meeting, I'd just like to remind everyone that this meeting is going to be live streamed, and therefore it's very important that everyone use the microphones. So please remember to turn the microphone on. It's the little image that looks like a man with a Wi-Fi signal coming out of his mouth. And that will connect your microphone. Thank you.
Good morning.
Thank you, staff.
Ajibola Balogun.
Here.
Marcia Berry-Smith.
Here.
Michelle Colley. Here. Beth Daly.
Here.
Francis Esposito.
Here.
Carol Hatton. Deborah Hickson.
Here.
Parnell Joyce.
Here.
Christopher Kresman.
Here.
Gino Morrow. Nathan Perlmutter. Commissioner Rogers. Ralph Stone. Sue Fayes is here for Ralph. Tanisha Taylor.
Here.
And Lisa Vecchi is here. No, Lisa Vecchi is not here. Okay, we do have a quorum.
Wonderful. The first privilege I have this morning is to introduce our newest member, Deborah Hickson, School Board of Broward County Representative. Her resume reads very impressively. We are so happy to have you. We like our school board members especially because they know about parents and housing and so on. And if you'd like to say a little something to the council members, please do.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Debbie Hickson. I am one of the countywide school board members and happy to join the commission. I'm also on the SNAC committee, and housing is a big discussion among special needs people. So it's a conversation I've been involved in, so happy to look at it on a bigger scale. I'm here for Mrs. Leonardi. She was not able to continue in the capacity of being on the committee, so I'm the alternate, and so now you have me. I've been a teacher in Broward County Public Schools for 33 years before I was elected. This is my 35th year of starting a first new day of school as an educator. So, I've been a Broward County resident for a very long time and just happy to be here. So thank you.
Welcome. I am so pleased this morning to go straight into business, and it's not business as usual at all, because it's Alice in the Cross Currents. The Alice Report is something that we base each and every year that it comes out. We base some of our work, we base some of our directives and objectives, and the population grows and the need grows. So it's my pleasure to introduce to you Nazbi Chowdhury, Director of Public Policy and Strategic Initiatives for United Way of Broward. Welcome, welcome, and please plunge right into it. We're ready with coffee, which, by the way, is a treat from staff. Appreciation, Broward Housing Council members' appreciation. Thank you. Nazbi, the floor is yours.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Marcia. Can everybody hear me okay? Perfect. You're going to need that coffee because what I'm about to dive into is a lot of information. So I hope to have your attention for as long as I can have it. Just a quick show of hands. Does anybody in the new room already know what Alice is and is familiar with the term Alice? All right. Everybody. Great. Perfect. So I'm done then. But yes, Alice, asset limited, income constrained, and employed. It is encompassing our families that struggle to make their month-to-month expenses affordable for themselves. So really, this presentation that has been prepared for us today by our United Way Worldwide team and our United for Alice team, which is our research organization, is just really diving into a lot of this hard data that has been made available available post-pandemic. So really we're talking mid-2021, early 2022 to see where have families really been post-pandemic? How are they doing? How did they fare from the assistance that they received during the pandemic as well, which of course, as we all know now, is no longer available or is expiring. So with that, I will dive in. So again, meeting Alice, I just went over the definition. We're talking our essential workers here, anybody that works in hospitality and tourism in Florida, which as we know is one of our major driving forces of our economy, but also our healthcare workers, our hospital care workers, our teachers, our law enforcement, our first responders. And all of those employment categories can be considered folks who are within the Alice population. Retail workers as well, one of the most common positions and employments within the state of Florida, but also in Broward County. Just a quick map of Broward County, which I'm sure everyone in the room is already familiar with. And again, United for Alice, which is our research organization where you'll be able to find the information that I'm willing to share with you today on that website. And then if you'd like to learn more about some of the programs and services that United Way provides, that is our website. Again, United for Alice partners with 27 states here in the U.S. They have data for over 3,000 counties, and we're very fortunate that they work with us here in Broward, and they have the data to share with us. So this is the Research Advisory Committee for the Florida report. So along with Broward County, they also put together a statewide report. And you can see here, I don't have a laser, but we do have Broward County representation on the statewide committee. Miss Shira Folks from the Children's Services Council sits on that statewide committee. So very fortunate to have her represent Broward County among the very other distinguished folks on the committee as well. So diving into some of the agenda here, again, make sure you take sips of those coffee. It's going to be a lot of information, but I'm going to try to keep folks engaged and keep this moving along. So diving right into some of the methodology and the terms that are used in this report. Here are the 5 main terms that are used within the report. The first one you'll see is listed as the household survival budget, which is specifically describing, again, as I mentioned, those month-to-month expenses that families and individuals have. We're talking housing, childcare, transportation, technology, right? We need access to Wi-Fi today, and we need all families to have it because you cannot live without this little device right here in my hand. When we talk about the Alice threshold, we are referring to individuals who are described as Alice families, which are right above the federal poverty level. So they don't necessarily get a lot of government assistance, or they don't necessarily qualify for it because their income is just a little bit too high. But then when we talk about the Alice threshold, we're also including those families at the federal poverty level as well. So whenever I say below the Alice threshold, I'm talking about Alice families as well as families that are categorized as below the federal poverty level. Alice, you're going to see that term used a lot. Poverty, households earning below the federal poverty level, and then total households is a term that I'll be using throughout this presentation to describe the households within Broward County that are already been listed from the American Community Survey, which is a federal survey that's released biannually, I believe, and has gathered a lot of data, not only using the census, but other data sets at federal agencies. Any questions so far? Again, more data notes here in terms of where a lot of these sources have come from. A lot of it is federal data points and from federal agencies, specifically the American Community Survey, the Community Expenditure Survey, as well as another specific data point and report that is used for the report. And then a lot of state agency level data that is made available throughout the years and whatnot is all encompassed within the report. So again, that household survival budget. On this next slide, what you're getting ready to see is a sample table of what that looks like here in Broward County for a single individual, a single parent individual, a family with 2 parents who are employed and working full-time, and really pay attention to some of the costs, with the exception of housing, and I'm going to explain that in a minute, but really pay attention to a lot of those costs and what that means for an individual with children, specifically when we're talking about childcare, what that means for transportation for folks that may not have a car to transport themselves throughout the county, as well as healthcare, technology, so on and so forth. The reason I say with the exception to housing is that you're getting ready to see here on this slide that I have crossed out what the fair market rent has been listed for housing on this table. This table was specifically developed in using the fair market rent analysis that was distributed by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and they have the fair market rent prices listed on there, which I think we can all agree is nowhere near found or achievable here in Broward County. So I've crossed that out, and for this presentation specifically, I've put on the side a lot of the research that has been put together and developed by this committee, that has been put together by Dr. Ned Murray from FIU's Metropolitan Center, to really tell you what the actual rent is and how that drastically changes, just for housing specifically, the annual expenses for each of these individual families. As you all are aware, a 1-bedroom, 1-bath cost, the average here in Broward County is $2,100. That is the average, and that is just rent. That is excluding utilities and other costs that go into housing. And for a single adult, that puts their annual budget over $45,000 annually, just when we substitute that $905 to $2,100. Now, when we're talking about housing for 2 adults for perhaps 2 children, which, you know, if they're renting, they may be looking at on average a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and in some cases that may even be too small. But we all know here the average for that is even larger. It starts at $3,000, but it only continues to go up. And if I was doing this presentation for Miami-Dade County, we'd know that that $3,000 is more so closer to $3,200 or $3,500 when we're talking about 3 2s in Miami-Dade County. And that puts a family with 2 children and 2 adults working full-time of an annual budget of over $90,000. How is that possible when the annual median income in this county is $65,000? It's not. So very concerning here, and more so when we look at this table, we just want to be sure to continue sounding the alarm, which I know folks on this committee are very aware of and already do within your organizations and your communities. So I thank you for that. So that is just a little bit about our household survival budget. Of course, childcare is that next large consuming cost in monthly expenses. And it is my hope that the legislature is looking to address that concern, along with continuing to address housing as we move forward in upcoming legislative sessions.
I'm sorry, Nasby, may I just say, this is going to be available online on our website, correct, Joe, after the presentation? So you will have all the information there for you in going forward. Just letting you know that we can absorb it, you know. Thank
you, Marcia. So again, this cost and household survival budget differs, right, when we look at county to county. The 2 examples that are listed on this slide here are for Hardy County and Monroe County. Again, these 2 examples are used because of the drastic difference in county to county household survival budget. In a place like Hardy County, it's $55,000, but in a place like Monroe County, it's $83,000, and that is simply just not affordable for the families that may be living there, depending on what the annual income or the annual median income is for those specific counties. Across Florida as a whole, between 2019 to 2021, we've seen costs increase from 12% for a single adult, 11% for a single senior, and 7% for a family of 4. So, as I mentioned earlier, competing costs in post-pandemic, mid-2021, leading on and forward. We had a little increase in wages. There was some stimulus payments. There was certain tax credits that were made available, but those are no longer available and no longer in use. And we have rising inflation. We have wages are at an all-time low, and let's see what that looks like for a lot of families here in Broward County. So, when we talk about the differences in years, from the most recent report, you'll see that we're talking about below the ALICE threshold. Over 327,000 families were below the ALICE threshold right before the pandemic. And that's putting us at around the similar number of 46%. Again, remember, when we talk about ALICE threshold, we're referring to ALICE families and families within poverty. So when we combine those two numbers together, we're getting 327,000. However, in 2021, post-pandemic, that number has increased to over $346,000. Now, I know a lot of the folks who are well at math are probably doing, wow, that's a 6% increase. But also take into consideration, we did have population growth over that time. So from 2019 to 2021, we did have a significant amount of population growth. The percentage is escaping me. It's somewhere within this presentation. But when we take into consider that population growth now in Broward County, this 6% increase can be broken down into half, into a 3% increase. So it's not as concerning in terms of families that are now below the ALICE threshold and not able to afford that household survival budget, but it is still a increasing trend, which is not a good thing. That here, we've broken that number down into ALICE families, which is in light blue, and then families in poverty, which is in dark blue. And then you'll also see here a 10-year highs and lows estimate all the way leading back to 2010. You'll see that there was a rise in 2014, and it was slowly decreasing. But then, of course, in 2020, the pandemic has just caused that slope to slowly start to increase. So again, when we add up both of these numbers, we get the 346,000, which includes below the ALICE threshold. Putting that number into percentages, we have in Broward County in 2021, over 54% of the population is above the ALICE threshold, but then again, 46% that are still struggling. And again, we're in mid-2023, folks. These numbers could be a little bit more different when we talk about folks above the ALICE threshold and folks below the ALICE threshold. If we tend to follow the data trend of this slope increasing, these percentages can be tweaked to say less than 54% of people are above the ALICE threshold and more than 46% of individuals and families are below the ALICE threshold. So keep that in mind as well. Looking to some of our neighboring counties and what that kind of looks like as well. So again, that total household number is what has been gathered by the American Community Survey. That is not total population. Obviously in Broward County, total population, we're close to more than 2 million. But when we talk about individual households, we're at around over 740,000 total households, putting us at 46% below the ALICE threshold. Don't pay attention to Collier County and Hendry County as much, but look at Miami-Dade and Palm Beach County, our neighbors to the north and south, and what encompass the Tri-County area here. When we look at their total households, we have Miami-Dade at 51%, over 960,000 households, and Palm Beach County a little bit less, close to 560, but 43%. What this is telling you is that if we were to take our total households number and evenly distribute it across the three counties, that percentage is almost the same, which means as a tri-county area, we are not doing well when we look at families below the ALICE threshold. So it is not an issue or problems that can be solved individually by just any county alone. But I think really here in South Florida, we have a unique opportunity to work with our friends and our neighbors to the north and south of us to really come together and say, how can we battle and help these families? So this is a state comparison for the most recent report. So that number is really only a difference of 1% when we're talking percentages, but also the population and household differences and sizes are different when we look at the overall state data. And then again, that website that I mentioned earlier, unitedforalice.org, has the 2021 state data as well available. So you can look at that data and look at Broward County's data and really kind of do some cross-comparison analysis. A national comparison as well, we have the lowest range of families below the ALICE threshold at 32% in Arkansas, and then 52% in Mississippi. But then just giving you a broader range of how we're looking as a country, you'll see the Midwest has the lowest amount of families below the ALICE threshold, with the South again, the highest in terms of 45%. Looking at the demographics. So here is where we can get into a little bit more specifics in terms of which families, depending on their ethnicities, their age, their race, how they identify, and what we're looking at in terms of battling the highest percent of hardship. So Black families and American Indian and Alaska Native families, as well as Hispanic families, are suffering the most when we talk about race and hardship at 54% and 49% respectively. When we look at individuals' age ranges, of course, here in Broward, we have a very large senior community, as you all know, and seniors 65 and over, we've identified 61% of the seniors here in Broward County are battling or below the ALICE threshold and are experiencing hardship. A lot of that can be due to being on fixed incomes, as we know. And then under 25, which is a unique thing, but also it makes sense. When we're looking at households and single individuals that are under 25, we're thinking of your most recent college graduate that just came back and may not have family support. We're thinking of that single mother or single father that is under that age range, that is suffering and has just started in their career or has just gotten hired at that new job. So their wages aren't competitive enough for them to afford that household survival budget. And then, of course, when we talk about single parent households, single parent female headed households is the major concern here, because we are talking 74% of single parent female households below the ALICE threshold, as opposed to 63%, which is still over 50%, but 63% of male headed single parent households. And then the families and demographics that are, still suffering hardships and challenges, but their percentages are a little bit lower. We have Asian families and white families at 38 and 42% respectively. And then when we talk about middle-aged individuals from 45 to 64 at 39%. And then obviously, if we are looking at two-parent households that both families are working, or two parents are working full-time salaried, which is very fortunate, we're looking at a very low percentage of 25%. And that's breaking those percentages down into charts here even further when we're looking at under 25, 25 to 44, 45 to 64, and then 65 and over. Again, you can see that under 25 and 65 and over have the largest amount of light blue and dark blue, signifying that they are below the ALICE threshold and are struggling the most. And then breaking those percentages down into numbers. We're looking at, of the total households that are available, you'll see there that the senior community, which is in light gray, is over 124,000 households of seniors that are below the ALICE threshold. And then again, 25 to 44, which is the light blue, 98,000, and then so on and so forth. And obviously, it does say for under 25 that it's 8,900 households, but then of the total amount of households, to have 8,900 be represented as below the ALICE threshold is really the concern there. Because when we're looking at under 25 headed households, that number is not more, total number is not more than 8,900. So it is a large amount. Families with children, again, something that we should all be familiar with and understand. As I just mentioned, single female-headed households are the largest households that are experiencing hardship and within the ALICE threshold at over 74%. Going back to married households or two-parent households on full salaried incomes, that percentage is a little bit lower, but then single male-headed households, again, similar below the ALICE threshold. And then that next slide is going to be putting these percentages into numbers, which here we'll see 37,000 single female-headed households are below the ALICE threshold. 29,000 families are below, or 29,000 households with two married parent households are below the ALICE threshold, and then that 10,000 single male-headed households. Breaking these percentages down by race and ethnicity, Again, as you can see here, Black and Hispanic and American Indian, Alaska Native families are the three specific households and families by race and ethnicity that are experiencing hardship and are below the ALICE threshold, as opposed to Asian families and white families, which you can see here significantly differ in terms of being above the ALICE threshold. And this next slide does not have these demographics broken down by number, because the most recent 2020 census did something weird with their definition of including white families and how Hispanic families may be included into that. And it was just, the data was not clear in terms of how to break those numbers down by race. So those numbers aren't available, but the percentages are. So what do we see here? What is a common theme? Working hard yet struggling. 70% of the top 20 jobs in Florida still pay less than $20 per hour. The most common occupation in Florida is a retail salesperson, and their median wage did increase by 18%. And let's not forget there was a statewide ballot initiative that allowed our minimum wage income to increase by $1 every year. But even after this year, when that goes into effect, I believe at the end of September, that's only putting minimum wage at $13 an hour. We're not even at 15 yet. We're not even going to get to 15 for another 2 years once that takes into effect. So families are still struggling. 33% of more than 293,000 retail workers are still below the ALICE threshold. The second most common retail position and common occupation are cooks and hotel and hospitality workers. That is going to become a concern, as we've already been seeing an exodus from a lot of families, individuals, not only in our community, but Miami-Dade especially. I think there was an article written by the Miami Herald about how they are losing workers because families just can't afford it. They can't afford to be here anymore. So that is a problem when, again, we talk about how great our hospitality and tourism numbers are for businesses as well, small businesses, large businesses, whatever the case may be. And here are some data in terms of our labor force here in Broward County and what that looks like in terms of the population statistics. So we do have a large number of individuals who are not within our labor force. Again, going back to our senior community, that 65 and over, that are retired, that are on fixed incomes, that are not working no longer. So that puts our labor force at a very diminished value, which then puts into effect wages, because wages are no longer competitive when you don't have a larger pool of workers. Exactly. So this is just showing you full-time salaried and then full-time hourly are mainly the bulk of our labor force, but we still do have a large amount and large percentage of employees that are working part-time hourly. And unfortunately, especially if they are a single individual or single parent household, that is very tough to then meet that household survival budget. So now taking a closer look at some of the pandemic assistance that I mentioned earlier, right? We had stimulus payments, the child tax credit that was expanded and is on the verge of expiring unless Congress decides to expand it again. The child dependent care tax credit, unemployment benefits and insurance, which of course we know was a disaster in Florida. That was still available for folks that were fortunate enough to get it, and then ERA assistance that was made available by counties and municipalities. You had a question, sir?
On that last slide, what was the difference between unemployed and not in labor force?
So unemployed meaning folks who are struggling to find jobs, folks who are struggling to get a competitive wage so that they're either A, not accepting the job offer, or B, they're still applying to others positions to get that competitive wage. So that means unemployed. Not in labor force is describing our senior community and those who are retired or no longer eligible to work either. It could also mean disabled folks and in the community that can't work or are on assistance, Social Security and whatnot have you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So let's look at along with the pandemic assistance, what this looks like. So in Florida, a family of 4 with 2 parents working full-time, for example, retail sales and a cashier, was not able to afford the household survival budget, even with temporarily increased credits and payments. So basically what this is telling you is that even before the pandemic, we had an issue with families not being able to meet the household survival budget. And the assistance still did not help a lot of families meet the household survival budget. So 2 full-time workers fell short by $8,900 or 12%, and part-time workers fell short by $11,600 or 17%. And this graph is basically breaking down a lot of those costs here. You can see that for a household survival budget during the pandemic, you're looking at an annual cost anywhere between $70,000 to $80,000. But then when you have 2 full-time workers, and forgive me, the taxes is a little bit lighter, so you can't see it, but that bar is actually higher than these other 2 bars. With 2 full-time workers and 2 part-time workers, you have your child care and child dependent care tax credit. And then for another family, let's say you have ERA assistance, SNAP, earned income tax credit, and other assistance, they still can't reach that first bar of a household survival budget. So the pandemic assistance helped families, not put them even further below to all the way down into the poverty level, but it still did not do enough. And that's even more concerning now that a lot of those assistance programs are expiring. So, what are the warning signs on the horizon? A lot of respondents and surveys of the American Community Survey, Community Expenditure Survey, also ask basic questions to a lot of the families that fill out the forms, such as, do you feel secure in the amount of nutrition and food that you're getting? How do you feel on a day-to-day basis in terms of your mental health, your behavioral health? And these are some of the results that are found within Broward County and within Florida. 18% have reported that they don't have enough food, 16% have reported that they are behind on rent, and 20% reported that they're nervous, anxious, or on edge every day. So food insufficiency broken down by race and ethnicity. You can see here again with the common demographics that I mentioned earlier: Black, Hispanic families, single parent, female-headed families, and with folks with a disability, and then also individuals within the LGBTQ community are the ones that are below the ALICE threshold and have considered or are food insufficient. Nervousness and anxiousness, again, leading with those same demographics. A lot of them are below the ALICE threshold and have reported feeling nervous, anxiousness, or on edge. So, warning signs on the horizon. Only 45% of Florida's struggling households have emergency savings. That means one car accident, one healthcare scare, one hospital bill, anything that is not already budgeted for puts these families below the ALICE threshold, or even worse in some cases, into below the federal poverty line. So what are the next steps? As I mentioned, we have our United for ALICE website where all of this data can be found, not only for the state, but for Broward County specifically. You will be getting this presentation as to Marcia's promise. And then this next tool that I really would like to dive your attention into, if I had share screen capabilities and we were on Zoom, I'd really dive into it, but it is the Legislative District tool. This is a tool that when you go online, it is broken down by 27 states. You click on Florida and you can click on our state legislative districts, the House and Senate, and you can click on our congressional districts. And once you click on that district, it's going to tell you how many families are below the ALICE threshold, what the percentages are, and even furthermore, what the race demographics are. It is a very cool tool. We just had our public policy committee meeting earlier this morning, and I showed folks on our committee how to use it. So obviously when you're meeting with legislators, when you're meeting with your elected officials, you're not going to stand here and give them a 30-minute presentation because you're going to lose them. But what you can do is give them the link to that website, or also, better yet, show them when you're in a meeting with them, because it takes literally 30 seconds to a minute to go there, click your district, and see all the families that are struggling. And that's for all districts. There's no D or R listed to those districts, right? We're looking at families. We're looking at people who are struggling. So that is a great, great tool, and I would very much so like all of you to use it. Yes, question?
That tool is on the United for ALICE website?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So, and then just more, again, we have this information accessible too. If you don't remember half of the stuff I just told you, go to our website, United Way of Broward County, and you'll be able to access these resources as well as this presentation. Any questions?
Just one comment. I'm just thinking that coffee needs to move over and be replaced with wine, but it's just not strong enough to take all of this in and digest it. This is we are so grateful to you this morning. Seriously. I've been doing a little blog on LinkedIn. Some of you may have seen it, called Sobering Facts About Affordable Housing Today. And I just got my next 3 months comment to post in LinkedIn from what you've shared here. We were hoping that it might have some magic way have improved, but our work has only just begun. And we just thank you and United Way so much. Are there any questions? Yes, please. I was just letting you know the impact. Thank you.
I'm sorry, you go.
No, go ahead.
Thank you. Nazi, absolutely fabulous. And he did this whole presentation to the group of CEOs and professional association just the other day. So the information's getting out there. My question goes to your point about the legislative district information. I don't remember what website. I think it's the Low Income Housing Coalition, where it actually specifies by city in Broward County what the required wage rate on an hourly basis is to live in that city. And that's another piece that we collect for our research purposes.
Thank you, friend. Yeah, no, I know they have an interesting dashboard, as well as the Federal Reserve Bank as well has their benefits cliff dashboard that folks can go on and see really where if you're getting a certain amount of benefits, what that looks like if you have an increase of wages and those benefits no longer apply to you or you don't no longer qualify for them, how drastically your monthly expenses increase. So tools like that, tools like the low-income housing dashboard that Fran just mentioned and this one are just adding on to sounding the alarm, right? That's what we're trying to do here is we're sounding the alarm. We're trying to say, hey, elected officials, organizations, whoever in the businesses, whoever in the community, if we don't solve this crisis, it is going to indirectly affect you. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but down the line. And then for your families, your children, and, you know, God knows however long. So.
Thank you so much for being here today.
Absolutely.
As I was listening, thank you. As I was listening, I was thinking how useful it would be if somehow there could be a presentation put together and taught in 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade in regard to what the real situation is, to allow the young kids to see how they might start to formulate a way out. Is
Yeah.
that
I'll
possible?
address.
That's a great recommendation. I mean, I absolutely think we need to involve the youth in all of these discussions, absolutely, because they are our future, right? And in some cases, we'll be solving a lot of these problems long after, you know, we're gone, if they do tend to exist that further down, which I unfortunately do believe will. In Broward County, we do have a Broward Youth Coalition that's through our health initiatives team, which works with juniors and seniors in high school. And I think we also work with middle schools as well. But I forget off the top of my head how many middle schools we work with, where we bring in incentives, right? We offer them snacks and food, community service hours, right? So they're getting the benefit of being there, but they're also learning a lot about these issues, behavioral health issues specifically, because we find that a lot of youth here in Broward County are specifically passionate about behavioral health and mental health, right? So I think it's, to your point, I need to head over into one of those meetings and kind of either do this presentation or let them know, hey, we need to continue getting the word out for this to, you know, because sooner or later, you know, we're already seeing a teacher shortage here with the beginning of schools, as, you know, we all know in this room, and as school board member Ms. Hickson can point to. So it's important that they're involved in the conversation as well.
I'll just address that. Broward County actually teaches financial literacy, and they were doing it, and then recently the state passed a state law that you have to graduate high school with a financial literacy credit. So that is already in the works. That's part of it's not just what is the actual state, but how do you get yourself out of it? How do you save? How do you invest your money? How do you look at your own legacy of building economic stability? Thank you. My brain is not working today. And I will just say that there is a teaching shortage, but we are only at 1% of teachers not being in the classroom. So although there is a national shortage, I think Broward County is in a good place. We're a little under 150 teachers, which is still bad, but when you consider you have 1,500 teachers in general, it's about 1% of the teachers that we need that we don't have. So that market seems to be balancing itself out for us. But it is something. And then there's something called junior achievement, where
Yes.
all of our students
I was
at
just
fifth
getting ready to say
grade
that.
go and learn about financial in fifth grade. So it does start at the elementary level.
Yeah. Yeah, I sit on the Government Affairs Committee for the Junior Achievement Foundation here. And they do a fantastic job of really getting students up to speed in terms of, hey, you need to know what this means. You need to know how to build your credit. You need to know how to manage a budget and whatnot for yourself. But yeah, I mean, that all is great. But when we have rising costs and wages that aren't competitive for folks, they have manageable individuals will make the decision to leave and say, it's not affordable for me to live here. We're gonna give our students all the tools to learn and understand finance, and then they're gonna say, I can't live here, I gotta go. So then, it's unfortunate. Yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go for it.
Oh, I just had one overriding comment I wanted us to always keep in mind, the fact that 2/3 of the Alice population are people of color.
Mm-hmm.
So every time that we talk about the Alice population, that should be side by side in our memory, that this goes even deeper.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
For the past decade here, so the decade of data that we have from 2010 to 2021, Black and Hispanic families have always been the highest percentage below the Alice threshold. So it's a common trend, yeah.
So right now, I don't know if it's countywide or statewide, but talking about assistance for food for low-income families or housing vouchers or anything like that, the threshold is so incredibly low that you have seniors that are living on a fixed income that maybe their Social Security only amounts to, $29,000 a year. But I believe the threshold for any sort of assistance is only like 28,000 and change, which is the numbers that we went through. It's incredible how much that would affect that aging population. Do you know if there's any talk in the legislature because of the cost of insurance, the cost of food, the cost of housing? Everything's gotten so high here across the state of Florida. Is there any talk in the legislature about raising that threshold so that way more people would be able to qualify for programs like that?
I'm sure there's always been talks about doing that, and unfortunately they haven't done it yet because our legislature has a very unique way of thinking here in the state of Florida. I'll just put it at that. So, I mean, we are starting to see a trend, though, with the current leadership that's in Tallahassee with making everyday life better for families, right? As much as we may see in the media a lot of specific narratives that there are, one great thing that, someone from our delegation takes great pride in championing and leading is Representative Robin Bartleman's kid care legislation, which is increasing that threshold for families as they get certain wage increases to not be entirely kicked off of the kid care program. And for folks unfamiliar, that is the state's health insurance program for children ages, I want to say between 5 to all the way up until they're 18. So it really makes that affordable, and that is something that she's been championing from her days on the school board, right, to the legislature, and they finally passed that this past year. So hats off to her and hats off for the legislature to do that. And my only hope is that as they move forward, they don't let politics get in the way and they focus on making sure, okay, how can we help families? And that could be a great avenue to do that.
Thank you so much, Nasby.
Yes,
As I
absolutely.
said, I'm humbled. We've done a lot of work. We continue to welcome working with United Way and the Alice population. Did anyone have any other questions or concerns to share with Nasby? Yes.
Hi, Madam Chair.
On-
Just one, I got lost, so it was a great presentation, thank you. I got lost on the migration. We understand the cost of living and all the Alice components causing some people to leave. And we said, I thought there was a 6% migration inward.
Correct.
Who's coming in then, and is it based on a postcard dream of South Florida, or is it based on reality?
It's based on a lot of things. Unfortunately, I don't think the report dives into a lot of the migration data specifically. The overall Florida report might, but the one for Broward County doesn't. But there are a number of reasons as to why folks migrate to Florida. You know, there could be relating to, them finding our tax structure very friendly for their annual incomes. It could be related to family being more accessible, or living with family members that are aging. Again, just a lot of things. So too much for me to kind of dive into at the moment. But I think that statewide report, and I'll make sure Marcia gets that as well, can be shared so you can take a closer look at that.
Okay, thank you.
I think, sorry, partner, I think one of the largest reasons my research has shown is folks who are able to work remotely moving from high-paid states here, because what we consider high rental costs are very reasonable to a New York earner or a
Excellent
California earner. And
Excellent
so
point.
they're moving here to be able to live affordably
Yes.
on their California, New York, etc. salaries.
Right,
And that's been a big piece to
Yes.
this,
Which is
affecting the rental properties availability as well.
and forcing those families out.
Exactly.
So.
Right, so I guess that's my question. So the income-constrained population isn't being replaced by a new income-constrained population. It looks like maybe remote and people that have tax issues aren't replacing the critical workforce that we lose in hospitality and other industries like that.
Yeah, that's something that we're trying to use this report to sound the alarm on, because we love to tout of how great our state is and we live in paradise and all those things, and we're seeing migration come. But we need essential workers. We can't operate our state historically. Just look at our economics. We can't operate our state without those hospitality, tourism workers, let alone law enforcement, teachers, hospital care workers. Those are the jobs we need to prioritize in making sure that there's competitive wages, because only God knows what will happen if we lose a driving force of those individuals and are just living in a sea of remote workers.
I have another question. Is this presentation being shared with corporate America? Because I know that from a government point of view, or, I represent a bank, and I sound the alarm within the bank, right? And we are seeing it in our workforce where we can't find tellers, or we have actually people that accept a position and then they just don't show up the first day. So I know everybody's seeing that, but how do we get this to corporate America that has their corporations down here, it needs to be a corporate private partnership. There needs to be everybody involved, nonprofit, everybody. But is that happening?
I think it is. At the state level, I can tell you our state CEO for United Way of Florida, Melissa Nelson, who comes from a smaller United Way out of St. Johns County. So she's very well-versed in our network and has a lot of state connections, has got a partnership with the Florida Chamber of Commerce already begun. So at the state level, it's happening. Here in Broward County, of course, this information came out over the summer, and I'm doing my best to make presentations and get around. So I would love to make a presentation to the Greater Fort Lauderdale Chamber of Commerce, meet with the county commission and see how we can get more folks in the room and get out to those business communities as well, because you're 100% right. It needs to be a private, public, nonprofit partnership. Otherwise, we will move the needle in our sectors, but then there are other sectors that will just continue doing what they're doing.
Again, thank you.
Yes, thank you for having me, everybody. I appreciate it.
You're welcome anytime. Yes, come.
I will agree with you that the program was very informative, but we have policymakers, and I represent one of the 9. would you like for me to try and arrange for this presentation before the county commissioners?
Certainly, this is something that perhaps you can have a conversation
I see one of
directly
our attorneys in the room,
with,
and she does know how to get something on the county agenda.
that would be
So
very.
you will guide me through that process. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Rogers. So, turning our attention back to the agenda, has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes from the June meeting? If so, can I have a motion?
Move to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Chair's report, I would be redundant if I mean, that's a tough act to follow, and I'm not even going to try. What I did want to know was whether, Sue, yes, representing Ralph, whether you had anything that you wanted to report under this heading of Chair's report?
I'd just like to offer some good news.
Oh, good news. Oh, I do include that. I include that in my blog, so that's wonderful. We need your mic on, I think.
Yes, just briefly, I wanted to advise the board that at our recent Housing Finance Authority meeting that we had last week, I would believe it was, the board approved 400 new units in the amount of $90 million. So, although it seems like a drop in the bucket, we're doing our best to create as many units. So I thought that was good. Thank you.
Just for clarity, Sue, is that rental units?
Yes, they're all
Okay.
rental units, they're tax credit deals, so they're for rent for individuals and households below 80%. Primarily below 60%, but some go to 80.
That is wonderful news.
And that's the huge need, as we all know, in Broward County.
Definitely, quite definitely.
Yeah, I can give you the locations. I have them here somewhere.
Madam Chair, the slide showed the need in the elderly population across the spectrum of need in every demographic, but we were a recipient of approval from the Housing Finance Authority Board. We'll do a little bit over 70 units for extremely low-income seniors that are eligible for Section 8 subsidies. So people below 30% of the area median income will eventually, in a year or two, have brand-new facilities to live in, and that'll be wonderful.
Reason for celebration. Someone had a comment?
Oh, in response to your question, the location of the units is there's 145 in the city of Lauderhill, 76 in the town of Davie, 88 in the city of Pembroke Pines, and 100 in the city of Pompano Beach.
I shall make sure to mention that under things to celebrate in my blog.
Great,
Thank
thank you.
Thank you.
And please convey our thanks also to Mr. Stone. I don't think that I had anything more that will not be covered by staff, and so perhaps I'll defer to staff. Commissioner Rogers, did you have something?
I will see if staff will be mentioning the fact that we had a discussion last. Thank you. I'm waiting to see if staff will be mentioning anything to this body about the discussion around housing for seniors at the last commission meeting. So I'll wait.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to learn the process, what is shared and what is not shared, and how we get information to the right ears. If you are the liaison between the community and county, then if you don't know what's happening at the county, because you're not hearing it, then I'm just waiting to see how that works.
In the most recent past, staff has been excellent at conveying to us the issues at hand. So let me defer to staff first, and then if you haven't heard it, then perhaps you can introduce it to us, and we can discuss it at that time, sure. So I'm going to turn it over to the director, Joe.
Thank you.
And Sue.
So I was going to mention a couple of things this morning. One, to give a little feedback about the most recent commission meeting, and then secondly, I wanted to just talk a little bit about our website, particularly for the new members who may not be familiar with the information that we have on the Housing Council website. But to address the commissioner's issue, at the last commission meeting, there were two particular items that came up. One was related to the change in state law for rental housing, which has required that the Board of County Commissioners repeal the Tenant Bill of Rights that was passed last year and the associated other ordinances. So part of that was done before the break, and I think there is another item that's coming before the board at the next meeting to complete that repeal so that we are now consistent with the state law. We do have a website for rental housing, which I'll show you in just a moment. That is still active. We have updated that website so that it's consistent with state law and so that it has the latest information. So if you still see those posters out which advertised rental assistance or rental information, those posters are still good, and the little QR code is on them is still good. So please don't take them down if you were kind enough to put them up for us. The other issue that came up was a discussion that Commissioner Rogers had introduced concerning the assessments for condominiums. As many of you know, and we heard it on last Housing Council meeting, the requirement for assessments is quite steep, and many people are being faced with very high amounts of assessments in order to be able to fix older condominiums that are now subject to inspections and serious repairs, and this was in response to the Champlain Towers issue. The Board of County Commissioners discussed this item at some length, and Commissioner Rogers was a leader on that. But they ultimately did not decide to move forward with anything, feeling instead that this is really a state issue that needs to be addressed through the legislative process at the state, because the requirements for them to bring forward items at this time to address this kind of financial impact is just too big for the county to take on. And so there was discussion about pushing forward to address this at the state legislature and advocating for the state to make changes to the legislation that has caused this problem to be so severe at this time. I think perhaps I encapsulated that correctly, Commissioner, if there's anything you wanted to add.
Really well on that. Okay, and when you're done with your report, I'll make my comments to this one and
Sure.
request.
Well, like I said, the other thing I wanted to talk about was the website, so if you just let me take a little walk over here. So our website is one of the things that we have put together over the past few years in order to provide basically a portal of information on affordable housing issues. And there have been some changes to it, so I just wanted to make everyone aware. First of all, it is broward.org / Broward Housing Council. And of course, you can also Google Broward Housing Council and this will come up. And so the first thing that we have here is the link to our affordable housing needs assessment, which was completed in 2022. So the entire document is there in a PDF format in an easy to reach position. And then we have a little space where we're advertising our next meeting and of course our upcoming November 1st Live Local Broward Affordable Housing Workshop, which we'll be talking about later on the agenda. These individual tiles are set up so that they display nicely on a mobile device. So if you pull this up on a phone or an iPad, you'll be able to see these individual tiles. We have information about the council. We have the Affordable Housing Dashboard, which is another product that we put together last year and we're continuing to improve. If you're looking for information about the meetings, calendars, meetings, and minutes, this is where you will find our agendas. This is also where today's live stream video is located, if someone wants to watch remotely, and also where we will be posting the minutes. And if I just go back, so we have our work program, which of course the council adopts annually. We have our publications, the newsletters, the annual reports, and you can go back and see what this board has achieved over the previous years. We have the rental information. This is the one I just spoke about that goes with these posters. If you see these posters in locations, they will take, the QR code takes people to this page. And we have added the changes to state law, which explains why the bill of, the county's Bill of Rights is no longer in effect. But it does have a lot of other resources. It has links to phone numbers, websites, and other places where tenants can find information and connect people to some resources. So it's still a valuable page. And then finally, we have other resources and some information about the emergency rental assistance that's still applicable, but that site may be coming down in the near future. So I just wanted to give you kind of that overview, and then also mention that in the dashboard, we are continuing to update the dashboard. This has information about the supply, the affordability, and the income levels, and it has a lot of data in there. It is a work in progress to continue to update it, but we are doing our very best to keep this updated with the latest information. Particularly, we just updated the evictions information, so if you are interested in seeing evictions data, for example, I will take that down to, and forgive me for having to scroll, but that's just the way this works. We have the latest information on evictions, and you can see that evictions are starting to trend up again. So again, if you're interested in that information, it's available with evictions by zip code. So there's a lot of material that we have on the website, and I would encourage you to, both use it and to advertise it to others as a resource. And again, if you have something you would like us to feature on the website, please let me know, and we'll do our very best to incorporate that. So thank you. I'll just go back.
Thanks so much, Joe and Sue and Keith. This has been a wonderful resource. I highly recommend it. I've gone through times where I have put the reference to the website under my signature page, and bringing it to local, if not national, attention. So thanks for the job. I know keeping it up is tremendous. Continuing on, Commissioner Rogers, you said that you wanted to make further comment concerning the motion that you presented. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and to the members. I'm here especially this morning. I made a special trip. I even took my mom with me, just so I would be here, all right? Because I really wanted to see how this board feels about impact of the assessments on our seniors. And I know there's information, should be information that will break it out based on income levels and all of that. But we need to have a discussion. I don't know if this board can create their own committee and do some research on this thing to see who is being impacted. We recognize 2008, 2010, that housing crisis, some folks have not truly recovered from it. With COVID and everything that is happening in our economy, we know it's just, an attorney was there and she was saying, I'm also seeing an increase in foreclosures. Okay, it's happening. So we need, as communities, to really look at this. And I'm asking this board if that's something that you would be interested in looking at and seeing whether or not there's anything between public-private partnerships, what can be done. I've never believed that we need to wait until Tallahassee tells us that it's okay. They might not tell us that it's okay. So we need to offer our own solutions. We have banks that could be partners in pilot program to help our seniors, okay? Instead of doing it, it's the common area you're mostly concerned about, all right? It's the common area that the 30-year and the 40-year inspection is mostly about. So why can't we recommend and work with a bank to do a line of credit? There's just so many different things. We were not offering solutions at the meeting because I don't believe any one person could solve this problem or any one group. But we're saying we need to be looking at it as a housing board, as a housing authority, as whatever. We have to look at it. Our seniors will be losing their homes soon because you know the powers of the board. If you try to work with your condo board, it's very challenging, okay? They speak for all of the unit owners. But this is a crisis. It will become a foreclosure problem, and investors are gonna own these homes, and you have more mental health issues because you're foreclosing someone. When you evict someone, you're creating another group of people that's coming in for social services. Which one you can analyze the cost for sustaining someone you have evicted or displaced, and the social services that you will now have to provide for that. Are we looking at that and doing the comparison? So where would you want to invest your properties? And your condos are going to be the most affordable, even with the assessments. All right? If we manage it well and do it like you do your community development block loans, you know, we created 15 years, 10 years, you extend it so it becomes affordable. There's so many different things we could look at. Don't know if this is a project that we think we could engage others and start having a meeting around solution. And legislation is necessary by the state, by the federal government, who will be taking the lead in going to Tallahassee on behalf of whichever group, or going to Washington, be there. So that was my conversation. That's what I wanted to share with you this morning.
Thank you, Commissioner Rogers. Your eloquence and your passion are certainly appreciated. Just a little procedural sort of direction. I was just looking, for example, at how we word or the way that we go about, which is advising the county commission, facilitating coordination, etc. on the back of here. I watched some parts of the meeting, and I think that by the fact that it was somewhat stymied without having a second or whatever it's called, I think that we would be wise to wait until it garnered some more support and traction within the commission. Believe me, I'm not minimizing the impact or the importance of what you're suggesting that we do. But if we can only proceed on a path of making recommendations once it's been cemented and in place that this is something that is going to move forward. From what I understand, they're trying to defer it or move it to the state. And therefore, I think that we're a little bit premature if we were to begin to form a committee or research on this just yet. So I ask you to bear with us and have us remain mindful of this, but see if this moves forward a little bit more so that we can then enhance our position. And that, of course, would come as a result of the members, of the council members, voting to do so, to take this forward. So procedurally, it doesn't escape us or our passion or our interest, but procedurally, I think that we may be a little premature in putting that forward as a motion.
Question.
Mhm.
So I'm being advised that this board cannot by themselves take on.
I'm going to
Okay, I'm
defer
sorry.
to the attorney,
Isabel.
perhaps.
I just don't know what this board, if that is something, I'm just asking. I was just asking, what can you do? If everybody wants to push it down the road, when do we engage the community and whether or not that's something this board can do? If it's outside of what you can do, I can understand. If it's not outside of what you can do as a board, then I would love to hear from everybody on the board.
I thought I'm sorry if I wasn't clear. It is not that it is one thing or the other. What I am saying is that we would need for the board as a whole to determine that this was something that had an opportunity, that had a chance, and that we agreed should take priority in us moving forward with recommendations. Remember, we don't do anything, but we recommend or strongly endorse. And I think what I'm doing is deferring to the attorney in reference to your actual question as to what does the board do, since she may be. I think, for one thing, let me just say this, and truly I'm not being defensive. I am proud of what this board has achieved over the last many, many years of its being in place, we certainly have been vocal, we have been present, and our success rate within the confines of what we are and who we are and how we operate, our success rate is excellent. Perhaps the attorney might be able to respond.
Hi, I'm Anika Ashton, the Deputy County Attorney. I think the chair, encapsulated very well what the role of this board is. So the role of the board is really, that's in your title is to serve as an advisory body to the Board of County Commissioners. But in response to Commissioner Rogers' point, it's not that the board can't take this on. You could take it on, but you have to look at what your mission is as the board and make a decision about, given the fact that the BOCC has taken a certain approach to this issue, whether an advisory board is going to then advise them again about what they should do. So it's really a decision of the board about whether you would take something on. But I think the chair raises the point that given that your role is merely as an advisory role, and the board has determined the path that they would like to go, you will decide what makes sense for you to do, given that circumstance and your role.
Was that sufficient response for you,
I would
Commissioner?
love to hear from other board members, because I'm strong
I'm-
on my position. So I'm just, I'm good, honestly, because I'm
I
going
didn't-
outside of
I wasn't.
government.
No,
I'm going
I was
outside.
not at all bothered that you weren't good, Commissioner. Please
No, I'm
believe me.
good with it.
If I am sure we've always operated on an open mic. So if there are other folks on the other council members who wish to address this or to comment one way or the other, please do. Sorry, Beth. I think you had your hand up before earlier. So let her and then you. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Chair Marcia. I believe Miami-Dade County has come up with either the beginnings of a solution, or they have come up with some sort of funding avenue. But it's not Broward County. I'll do my best to get that information and share it. As far as the assessment, I'm sorry.
Right. Again, to the attorney's point, we welcome information. We always welcome information. Whether or not we are going to move forward in taking action, but we would welcome the information for you to share that with us. Yes.
So I would agree with Commissioner Rogers. I think that this is something that needs to be on our radar. I think that it's something that we're certainly going to be facing sooner rather than later. These assessments are coming down. The buildings are having their structural integrity reserve studies done and things like that. And I do think that we're already seeing some assessments being passed down. And a lot of the beachfront condos, we have a large senior population, especially on Galt Ocean Mile here in Broward County. We are going to see a lot of assessments coming. We're going to see a lot of people that can't afford those assessments. A lot of them have those properties paid off. They've owned them for a very long time. The issue is they don't have the cash in the bank to refinance because they wouldn't qualify because they don't have the income to pay the loan back. We have brought up the ability for people to do a reverse mortgage so that way they can generate an income, but unfortunately you cannot do a reverse mortgage on a condominium property. So this is something that I think over the course of the next couple of years, as all of these condominium communities start getting their studies in order and they're having their inspections done, I think that we are going to see a lot of cost burden condominium households, especially for the senior community.
All of which, with all of that, I agree. I heartily endorse the Commissioner's heart and passion about this. I myself am a senior. I myself live in a condominium that is 30-something years old. So please know this is personal. As chair, though, my responsibility is to adhere to the bylaws or the properties of the council. And until something, it doesn't stop us from studying it. It doesn't stop us from looking at it. It doesn't stop us from having staff bring back a report to us about numbers and impact and future impact. At this point in time, however, I am unable as chair to move forward, even with a motion, to take this on as a specific task or part of our work program until the county commission, the members themselves, have voted, or there's a second, or this is an item that is ongoing. Right now, the way I understand it, and I'm open to different interpretation, this has been stymied, has been stopped because it's being referred to the state. If I've said anything that's incorrect, please correct me, but until it becomes something that we can become involved with the Board of County Commissioners to make a recommendation, which of itself would have to be with a unanimous vote of the members, I don't feel comfortable in asking for a motion that we continue to work on this until such time. Again, I'm open to comments from the rest of the members. Yes.
You're absolutely right that it is being taken up to the state. The Miami Association of Realtors had fought really hard for this in Tallahassee, and when we go in January to Great American Realtor Days, that is going to be certainly on the talking points. So we're talking to all of the legislators up in Tallahassee to make sure that something is done in order to address this issue.
Thank you so much. And I know instinctively that staff will continue to keep us posted, keep us updated, as well as Commissioner Rogers, so that we know where this is going, whether it is going to gain any traction locally, whether this is something we can get on board with, not necessarily because emotionally, but as a council. Are there any other questions or concerns that anyone wants to mention on this? So we will table this for further research and waiting to hear further from Commissioner Rogers and staff. Is that okay with everyone? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Rogers. Is there any new business, Joe or Sue?
No, we don't have any new business, but we do have some old business.
Would you go ahead and, I'm sorry, yes?
I just wanted to make a quick comment to update everyone on what was happening with the Hometown Heroes program and the Live Local Act. I just found out yesterday that, fortunately, but also unfortunately, they've given away all of the money, every penny of it. There is nothing left to give in that Hometown Heroes program. There was a rumor that there was going to be more money available as of September 5th. That was just a rumor. There is no more money coming into that pool until they go back to session in the beginning of the year, and at that time we will be advocating for hopefully another $100 million to go into that program because it helped a lot of families.
Thanks. Thank you so much for that update. To old business?
Old business, yes. First item of old business is we've had to amend the Housing Council's meeting dates. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone's aware that the next meeting is October 6th and not October 27th. So please update your calendars for that. And then our workshop date was also moved.
If I may, please, Madam Chair.
Yes.
The change to October 6th, is there a reason for it? I just have a major conflict. We have, there's a resiliency roundtable in the county that's going on, and
October
it's going to
6th.
be very important. So I just want to make sure that it's not something, is there something particular that I'll be missing if I don't make it?
So the reason that we had to change the date was because we had to move the date of the workshop, which was my next item, because we're moving the workshop to November 1st, and we felt like having 2 Housing Council events in 1 week would probably be a little much, even though you're a very enthusiastic group. Would another date in October be better for the October meeting? Would the 13th or 11th?
It would be the 13th.
The 13th. Would the 13th be?
Is there anyone who has a conflict with the 13th?
It is possible this room may not be available, so it might be in a different location, subject to confirmation, but we could certainly arrange for the meeting to be held on the 13th, if that's, yes?
Sorry? You're not here on the 13th either?
Oh, no, I'm fine.
Oh, okay.
That was
Chris.
No, that was me. I can't do the October 13th.
Yeah, and I would have to leave early because I have another meeting.
Okay.
Are we able to have a quorum, which would be
I mean, you can keep it at 6.
on the 13th?
Are there other members that had a conflict on the 6th?
Since it's now being streamed, Mr. Avijolak, do you mind if we leave it on the 6th? And,
Oh, I don't mind.
perhaps you can share with staff anything that you wanted us to
Absolutely,
direct.
yeah.
We will miss you, certainly. But if it's okay, if we can keep it on the 6th?
That's fine, yeah. The good news is we're recording the meeting, so you'll be able to watch the video afterwards.
Yes, that's what I was saying. Without your smiling face. Okay, so that's okay? Everyone's fine with the 6th as best as we can? Okay, leaving it on the 6th.
All right,
Joe, go
thank
ahead,
you.
please.
So for the workshop, Sue put together and just passed out our proposed agenda for the November 1st workshop. Now, this is still it's still tentative. We don't have all of the panel members yet, but I just want to make sure that everyone's aware that we have our keynote speaker confirmed. That is Senator Alexis Cadillon from District 38, who was one of the sponsors of the Live Local Act. So she will be speaking at the beginning of the meeting, and of course, Commissioner Rogers is going to be introducing her. And then we'll have two panels, the land use panel and the finance and taxes. That's basically centering our meeting on the major components of the Live Local Act. So the land use panel will include Dr. Murray, Stephanie Toothaker, who's been involved in the DDA, and Alberto Malayo, who is with the Related Group and has been working on a lot of affordable housing projects in Miami-Dade, but is also coming into Broward County. So I think they're going to give us an interesting perspective from those two different points of view. There'll be an opportunity for networking during the break. And then in the second session, they'll be based on finances and taxes. And Tanisha Taylor, our Housing Council member right here, will be moderating that group.
Thank you.
We'll have Ralph Stone and Michelle Colley, also our Housing Council member, will be in that. And our third member, I'm still working to confirm, so I don't want to announce that until I've had confirmation from him. And then following that, we'll have closing remarks, which I was hoping, Marcia, would you be willing to do the closing remarks?
Yes, certainly.
Okay, excellent. And then this will be a half-day session, so it would adjourn around 12. We have a sponsor breakfast, and there'll be an opportunity.
Thanks to City National Bank.
Yes, thank you to City National Bank. We'll definitely be promoting that, and we will have opportunities for. This is going to be in person, so it'll be a nice opportunity for people to come together. We'll be opening up for registration shortly. We've already sent out the save the date notice to everyone that's on our email list. And please feel free to pass that save the date to anyone you know that may be interested in attending. Thank you.
Will it be live streamed as well?
It will not be live streamed. Unfortunately, the location doesn't allow for that.
Okay.
We don't have the technology in that room to be able to do it, and we had already selected that venue before we began this. But I'm hopeful for next year. I don't want to go too far ahead, but for next year, we'll hopefully be able to hold that in a venue where we can live stream.
It will be recorded, though?
It will be recorded, yes.
And shared on the website?
We will attempt to share it on the website,
Yeah, after
yes.
editing.
Yeah, it kind of depends. Sometimes it's a little difficult to record the
I
live
know.
meetings, but we'll certainly do our best for you.
Thank you. Any questions on any of that? No? Any public comments? What about, I'm sorry, Joe, what about the charter amendments?
The charter amendment. So at this board's last meeting, you approved the request that's going to be submitted to the Board of County Commissioners. Commissioner Rogers has kindly offered to place that on a future agenda. I believe that will be on the September 19 agenda. Is that correct?
Thank you.
And so if the Board of County Commissioners is responsive to that and would then direct the county attorney to start drafting the appropriate ordinances to move it towards the charter on 2024 election. But again, that has to be presented to the Board of County Commissioners, and they have to approve that.
Thank you. Thanks, Joe. Are there any public comments? Do we have anything, Vice Chair Hutton isn't here, do we have any reports on homelessness or anything from Dr. McGuire?
Not for this meeting, but I think you recall at last meeting, she gave us a very comprehensive overview,
Yes,
so
she
we
did.
will certainly continue to invite her to participate in these meetings.
She certainly did. Okay, so our next meeting, as we just agreed, is on October 6th, and it will still be here in this location. Sue?
Yes, I went ahead and reserved the room.
Yes, it should be here. I reserved the room in case we approved it.
Okay, so prior to calling for a motion to adjourn, is there anything else?
I just wanted to let everyone know that the Housing Authority is opening their wait list for Section 8 on Monday, August 28th at 8 a.m.
Which one of them?
I'm checking, that's what I'm checking right now. I'm sorry, my glasses.
We have the CEO and chair
Oh,
of the
actually,
Housing
it's
Authority.
Homestead Housing Authority.
Oh.
I'm realizing now. Sorry, I thought it was
Okay.
in.
That's why I asked.
Yeah, I was like, see, that's why I need my glasses off when I'm reading. It's weird, but okay. I know, I was excited. I was like, oh, look, I just got this,
Madam
but
Chair,
no.
I-
And Deerfield Beach is opening. I'm looking right now to see. Hold on, they're doing something. Please share this information with all who are interested. Deerfield Beach Housing Authority, they have some income changes coming down the line and their wait lists and portability inquiries. They're just giving information on how to get information on to share with anyone that's interested in Deerfield Beach Housing Authority. And then they're sharing the same thing on Homestead.
Okay, thank you.
Just one other item. I don't know, Joe, on when you were flashing through some of the assessment work here on your, I noticed in there we listed the Broward County Housing Authority and Fort Lauderdale Housing Authority, but there's several others in Broward County that are not listed. We should list them as a resource for anybody interested, like Deerfield Beach, for example.
Point taken. Thank you. Thanks, Parnell.
I know, I think it goes back to the presentation too that was made by United Way and the fact that the three counties are so connected because, you know, even as we're doing work, we're working with people in Miami-Dade or in Palm Beach. So to be able to share and if they have an open, you know, wait list and they're opening it where we're closed, then we can try to help. You know, unfortunately, people are having to drive much further to get to their job locations and just to find affordable housing. The anxiety that was mentioned by I feel it, and I'm not pressed in any way, but I feel the anxiety just because I'm listening to all this information over and over, and one thing we're doing is listening, but I just don't feel like we're coming up with solutions, and that's what's keeping me up at night. So, the mental health is real that people are going through. And I can hear the anxiety in their voice when we're trying to come up with solutions for them to purchase homes or rental options. So,
thank you, Councilmember.
And not to take all the air out of the room, but it's a very important point. We are just literally inundated. Our phone systems almost can't keep up with the number of calls we're receiving for housing assistance of any sort. A lot of our migration is coming from not within Broward County, but from Miami-Dade. We're seeing a gigantic influx of people think Broward is cheaper than Miami-Dade, and they can afford to live there. But the number of calls we're getting is forcing us now to look at AI options, where we want to have real human options interacting with people in desperate situations, but there's no way we can keep up with the volume. And the last thing I want to say is the mental health that some of our clientele and members of our communities are feeling, staff that fields that is feeling it as well.
Yes.
So we're looking to move to get everybody on our staff, which is about 100 people, get them certified with some sort of mental health certification that comes out of our human resource department through
Excellent.
SHRM. It's just a lot to cope with. People are up against it. They can't accept that there's no availability of resources. It's a very difficult and lengthy conversation. And right, so if you're in it every day, it's a little bit cascading waves just keep coming over you. That's all. Thank you.
Fran?
I'm just echoing what Michelle and Parnell just said. All right, same thing. We're launching well-being classes for exactly the reasons you said. And regarding the Miami-Dade Trust, Homeless Trust, they're calling me, asking me with regard to the eviction as to what they're going to do. So, like we're all saying, we're all in the same boat.
Madam Chair, also, but I'd like to take sort of another take on that. I'd like to let everyone know that we in our office have purchase assistance money available for anyone that is in a position to purchase a home. Generally speaking, we are mostly dealing with condos, just for obvious reasons, because of the cost. But we do have money available, and if you go to our website, it's in certain cities, but it's all defined on our website, broward.org/housing. So just FYI.
Question,
Go ahead, hon.
is that for 80%
Yes.
AMI?
80%.
80%?
And we have up to $80,000 per unit, too. So we have significant assistance.
Not max.
And
But it is in certain locations. It's not all, everywhere doesn't have the same opportunity, so.
But the max is 80% AMI.
Right now.
I'm sorry, Commissioner had a,
In Hollywood, it actually goes up to 120.
Hollywood and Wilton Manors, the cities they go up to 120 AMI, but Wilton Manors doesn't have funds at this time.
That's correct. That's correct.
Commissioner?
The reason Hollywood is higher is because it's their own money. I'm sorry.
You, Mike?
I do this even on the dais. My colleagues have, I just start talking. Okay, you were talking about the condos being the unit of choice, maybe because of the pricing.
That's correct, yes.
That's where we're going. And if they go into foreclosure and it's owned by an investor, you know the challenge there also. But just wanted to say, as we talk about the challenges with housing here, and I'm hearing everyone putting money into mental health, even for staff, okay? You have to think this is serious, this foreclosure issue, and it's gonna be impacting a certain population more than others. And we need to really, outside of this room, think about it and come up with your own suggestions, whatever it might be. It has to be resolved by those of us that are feeling it, through staff, through everything that we do. The school board, I have 3 people that is now sleeping on the front porch of owners' property. They are sleeping in the driveways of properties in my community. So throughout, it is a bad situation when folks are being evicted and foreclosed upon. We don't have enough money, but we can find ways discussing those challenges so we learn from each other. So
Thank you,
I'll be
Commissioner.
advocating. Thank you for the time, Madam Chair.
Not at all, my pleasure. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Second? All in favor? Have a fantastic and safe Labor Day weekend, and see you in October.